Hi, welcome to the Gun Room. We're back. Proper football, proper real football. And I've got with me tonight, as loads of people have disappeared, they've got other things to do, which just goes to prove that myself and Paul haven't got much of a social life. That's what it proves. But I'm glad to have Paul with me. How are you, Paul? Do you have a nice Christmas?
Apart from the football, yeah, it's been quite good spending time with the family. Sadly, as ever, no line out to bring this dark cloud over the horizon during Christmas time. But hey, let's move on.
Yeah, we were just saying, myself and Paul, before we came on, that the vibe around the stadium, if the football's not very good and you're not winning, you're not getting results, it can become quite toxic. And Everton and Arsenal, at some stage, kind of mirrored each other at certain times in the season. And we don't know what's going to happen, but poor old Paul, he's got to suffer it. But we move on to the Arsenal and we'll move on to lots of other stuff as well. Here we are back again, as I said, at the top of the Premier League summit, looking on those beneath us, the chicken on a beach ball, especially. It was great to have West Ham back. We're going to cover it all in detail, all the stuff that Match of the Day ignores, that Sky misses, and BT is just oblivious to. So, Paul, you've had a great Christmas. Let's crack on with the Qatar World Cup. Match of the Day was on this morning. I caught that. They were ignoring the country's position on gay rights under the Penal Code 2004, but they felt comfortable enough to play Holly Johnson, The Power of Love, which was a bit of a mystery. Match of the Day, sort yourself out. What's your position on these things? You just don't know. What sort of World Cup was it for you, Paul? Was it a great success? Was it? It's been billed as one of the best World Cups ever. Is that the case?
I think that's going a step too far, to be honest, Tom. I mean, I think we discussed on pods previously that the timing of the World Cup was absolutely abysmal. It gave no thought to the impact on the domestic leagues. For as a match-going fan, to lose the access to top flight football for 7 weeks in winter when you need something to brighten your days up was really quite hard to bear. To me, it was maybe a slightly above average at times World Cup. I mean, the final was the final for 75 minutes was so one-sided. It was of no interest, and I think the finale, the match 2 goals in 90 seconds, kind of gave the final a kind of image that maybe the previous football hadn't quite justified beforehand. I mean, extra time was a mess, but you always kind of felt, we're kind of faced to win that World Cup this year. And it's I think Infantino's desperate to get as many kudos out of it as he possibly can. Now, by no way was it the best World Cup ever. I've seen far better World Cups in my lifetime. But I think the big worry for me now is that obviously seems to be behind the scenes a bit of a drive now to get the 2030 World Cup in Saudi Arabia. And if that's the future World Cups now, where it just goes to countries with the power to buy the competition, no matter what the cost or impact is on society or the major leagues in the rest of the world, I think that's a worrying development. I mean, for me, 2030 World Cup has to be in Uruguay. It's the century in the 1930s. Well, it just has to be. And if they move to Saudi Arabia and play it in the middle of winter again, well, I don't know. I might have to start to rethink my relationship with international football.
This is why he's here, because he gives you it as it is, and it's unbiased. So that's why Paul's here, and that's why we love him. Paul, one of the good things to come out of this was the amount of time added on, because in the domestic game, I mean, if you count it up, I was trying to look for the facts and the figures, but you get like a little bit of arguing, a little bit of bickering, and then there's the spray on the floor and all this sort of thing. All these things add up. The injury time, you never really get it back, do you? They put three, 4 minutes on, and you've lost 10 minutes. Well, Pierluigi Collina, do you remember him? He looked like Jean-Luc Picard.
I think Everton fans have many reasons to remember him. Pierluigi Collina, none of them favourable.
But he did come up with this idea of time you lose independently is going to be stuck on at the end. So more often than not, you were getting like 10 or so minutes, which was excellent from a fan's point of view. If you're paying good money to go and watch, and you're losing 10 minutes or so because someone's rolling around doing cartwheels on the floor, then it's not very good.
I thought that was fine, Tom, because what was quite good about that was it just kind of these days in a Premier League game, if you're trailing by an odd goal with 5 minutes to go stoppage time, you know the opposition's got to kill stoppage time by bringing endless substitutions, rolling round, kicking the ball in the corner, and the game's gone. So it was quite good to see that if you took that approach, time was going to be added on. So I thought that went quite well.
Yeah, excellent. I think it needs to be adopted throughout all over the globe. Just want to pay tribute to the 1966 winner, George Cohen, who passed away on the 23rd of December, aged 83. Thoughts and regards to his family. Right, so before we start, Melina Birch, who we're hoping to get on the podcast at some stage, has come out with a tweet, and it was 40 out of 45 points that were possible after 15 games. Arsenal's best ever start to a league position. She's just worked that out. This season has been the best start ever to Tottenham since 1963-64. She had to mention that, didn't she? Yeah? You have to rub it in a little bit. So Wenger was back at the Emirates, first time since 2018. It was nice to see him back, wasn't it, Paul? He's kept away, and I can understand his reasons, but it's about time.
Yeah, it is. I mean, when I saw Wenger at the ground last night, I was kind of wondering, quite often you see Alex Ferguson as the spectre in the background when United are maybe struggling at home, and you kind of question, is he healthy to be there? But I think the Wenger circumstance was different because he hasn't been back for so long, and you could almost view it as a mark of recognition that he wanted to pick a game to come back at a time when Arsenal were playing really, really good quality football and were in a really strong position as well. And Wenger signed our test as well, didn't he? So it was quite good to see that kind of relationship still exist between them as well. And it was good to see the Arsenal fans' response to it as well when his image was flicked up on the screen after he was celebrating. I think it's the second goal. So yeah, I think it's quite a club like Arsenal with such a rich heritage and history. You have to bring these influential figures back from your past and just remind some of the younger generation, look, this is Arsene Wenger. You might not, you need to understand where this club was before he joined us and what he did to the club in this space of time.
Well, there's no Emirates without him, that's for sure. And I noticed on social media, it was quite weird because there was a lot of fans that were pleased to have him back, and we were kind of reminiscing about what he did for us. And then you had the odd, nasty comment, which I thought, get over yourselves from what you enjoyed for 10 years, and then maybe the next 10 years weren't very good, or they were patchy or indifferent or whatever. And he had to go in the end. Of course he did. He was there for a long, long time, and you get stale, you run out of ideas, and maybe don't have the clout or the technical vision that you used to have. But he was an integral part of Arsenal's history. And I, for one, was glad to see him back. And it made me go all warm and fluffy, even though I didn't want him out in the end. I want him out in a respectful way, if you can ever do that.
I think it's well. Tom, I mean, you have to credit Wenger for the way he changed the perception and image of Arsenal as a footballing team. I know there was great success under George Graham, but by no stretch of imagination was George an entertainer. And I think Wenger, just kind of completely revamped the image of Arsenal in the general public in terms of what a footballing team they were. And of course, you cannot underestimate the whole changes he made to the dynamics, the training, the food, all those sort of things. I mean, I remember reading Tony Adams' first biography, and it's just brilliant insight into how he managed to get those players who were set in a certain way of training and playing into his way that he wanted football to be conveyed under his leadership. So his impact, not just at Arsenal, but on the Premier League, has been absolutely immense.
Yeah, they're talking about having statues built outside for maybe next year, which I think is a huge honour, and I wouldn't deny him that. And I definitely would have a stand named after him if we can fit one in. And if we could, not that we can, but if we could give him a knighthood, because they don't do that for foreigners. But I would do that as well because he was a revolutionary of the English game. He revolutionised it from top to bottom, and he bought, well, without him and Ferguson, there was no Premier League, was there really? Because it was that edginess and battle that really pulled the Premier League through and started getting Sky going through the motions. Anyway, West Ham struggling compared to last season or the season before. It's quite noticeable. They haven't got a goal scoring thing that we were talking about with Everton. That's their main loss. Whereas Arsenal at the moment are back in touch with their DNA. So What did you think of the game, Paul? What did you think about the game before it kicked off?
Well, I think we discussed on the previous part, hadn't we, about what the outcome of the match would be. I think I stated I was quite confident. I think you as well, Tom, that it should be an Arsenal victory because West Ham are not in the best vein of form. I think only kind of a slight concern would have been it's a London derby. You never quite know what's going to happen. I don't think
And the layoff as well. The layoff was
yeah,
quite long, was it?
yeah,
6 weeks?
it was, and you never quite know what frame of mind the players are going to come back in. I also don't think 7:45 kickoff is a great time either in terms of for fans to get to the game, could get home from the game, and it's kind of the tension's building up all day. You've seen the other results, how they're going, and that kind of puts a bit more pressure on the outcome of the game. But I just think I know we're going to discuss the game in some more detail, but I just thought the whole, as a neutral, I just thought the whole performance was incredibly impressive from start to finish, and I think the resilience that was shown by the team to come back after the penalty was conceded was quite reassuring from the fans' perspective as well.
Yeah, it was. I was confident, I must admit, but you never know that layoff, what it can do. Then we lost Jesus as well, so you've got to bring Eddie Nketiah. There's been a lot of to and fro. Is he good enough? Is he up to the level, or is he a level below? We'll discuss all that, obviously. West Ham's problems, as we said, were goals, and I think they're 13 goals behind where they were last season. They've got some great players, but they can't dominate. You've got some stars, but they just don't fit together at the moment. But enough of them. Let's talk about the Arsenal. 4-3-3 formation. Aaron Ramsdale in goal. Ben White, William Saliba, Gabriel, Kieran Tierney. Quite surprised by that one. I thought Zinchenko was going to be straight in there. Martin Odegaard, Thomas Partey, Granit Xhaka, Bukayo Saka, Eddie Nketiah, as we mentioned, and Gabriel Martinelli. As I say, we'll get to the goals, but let's do it now, actually, because I'm quite excited to get to them. 5 minutes in, and Arsenal had the ball in the net with some great interplay between Odegaard, Saka, and Nketiah. But in the build-up, which, I mean, it was marginal. This one was marginal. Didn't see it in real time, but apparently it caught Saka's heel, making the play offside. You obviously watched the game. What did you feel about this decision? Because there was a couple of marginals in this game, and this was one of them.
Yeah, definitely. You did kind of wonder if the FIFA World Cup system with the semi-automated offside technology, whether that one might have stood under that system. I'm not quite sure, but yeah, it was a harsh decision. But fortunately, it didn't affect the outcome of the game, and it's always quite frustrating, is it, when you see when the players put together a piece of skill in terms of the movement, the passing, the precision.
Beautiful movement as well, wasn't it?
Exactly. It cuts the defence apart. It's a brilliant goal, and it's almost kind of ruled out on a technicality. I know you can't be like a sticker to the rule type person. Well, he was offside, he's offside, that's it. But no, there's more to it than that. There has to be some kind of understanding that, you weren't seeking to gain an advantage by this. It was just a well-worked move, and for it to be disallowed by a fraction of things like that is hugely frustrating.
I'll tell you what I missed was all the little lines. I love that when they get all the lines out and you go, get away with you. It's a fingertip. What's the matter with you? Wipe your glasses. Anyway, let's get on. I was one that thought, come on, you're just splitting hairs now, and I don't know. Did he clip it on purpose to feed it on, or did it just hit him on the heel? Don't know. Anyway, 26 minutes on, penalty to West Ham. Antonio cruises down the wing, interchanges with Bowen, putting the winger through into the penalty area. Saliba puts in a measured slide to poke the ball away. Doesn't really take the opponent, just whips underneath his sort of airflow, I suppose, and Bowen goes to the ground. Marginal again. What did you make of that? I was going, no.
It's the modern game, unfortunately, isn't it, Tom? If an attacker feels to slice the touches, they're going to go down and make it seem a lot worse than what it actually was. Yeah, it was marginal. I'd have been quite unhappy if that had been given against Everton at any stage, so I can understand your frustrations with that. I think all you could say is that maybe Saliba possibly mistimed, was slightly out of position. I don't know. That could be me being incredibly harsh here. But yeah, it was no fortunate decision. And at that stage of the game, when Arsenal clearly dominated possession. They created the better chances. They had a goal disallowed for the marked
We
offside
were the
decision.
better team, weren't we? We were just like everything about us looked like we. It was a bit. There was a couple of there was passes that were short or passes that were long, but you got in the training sessions that they've been doing in Dubai or wherever, it's not the same intensity. So there's going to be a little bit of rust.
And I think as well, you have to almost compare the game at the weekend to the start of the season, because we've had this 6-week break. So there's going to be a bit of rustiness. That kind of intuitive understanding between players and as a passing of who is not going to be quite there yet, because there's been that 7-week hiatus between the team playing together cohesively. So yeah, it was. I think in previous seasons, the crowd might have got a bit restless at that stage. I think in previous seasons there might be this thing of, I think as well, given the fact that Jesus wasn't playing, you can suddenly you can understand that people start to get a bit concerned and put pressure on the team. But I thought the reaction of the crowd was superb. They stood with the team. They'd obviously seen in the first 25 minutes so that this is a quality team. We're top of the league. We don't help the team that's top of the league by getting on the backs at this stage. We stick behind them. We support them. We believe in what we're doing.
Well, there was enough to keep you going. It's funny how the live atmosphere, and because a friend of mine went there, and I watched it on the telly, and at one point on the telly, you could hear a pin drop. It sounded really low, like they were fed up. And then I spoke to him, and he said, "No, it was brilliant. Everyone was all behind the team." So it's interesting from a media point of view how they could kind of turn it all down and make it sound like everyone was getting a bit edgy. Anyway, so to the penalty, 27th minute, Ben Rama straight down the middle, past Aaron Ramsdale, against run of play, as we said. So those two marginal decisions. Saka offside and Saliba on Bowen. 45+5. There was a penalty awarded against Cresswell, deemed to have handled it in real time again. I mean, it was quite hard. When I first saw the hand go up, I thought, oh yeah, that's handball. But VAR revealed it hit his head. There's no argument with that, is there? It was quite a tough. If you're the referee as well, in a split second, and he goes like that and the ball comes off, you're going to think it. So you can't really criticise Oliver, although he's not the most generous man when it comes to Arsenal.
I understand that. And I think as well, we often spend, not just lots of podcasts spend time criticising VAR decisions, but I think that's a good example. Well, actually, VAR worked quite effectively because there was the penalty, but on the other time, it did look like a penalty, and you can understand why it would have been given. And I think as well, I think you looked at the Arsenal players' reaction, you can see they didn't quite think it was a penalty either, just by the way they were kind of approaching Michael Oliver to try and get the decision in their favour. So, but obviously, that would have been a real positive way to end the first half after two decisions had gone against Arsenal, to get one in their favour, to give them an opportunity to equalise before the interval.
I would have been quite happy with 1-1 at half time.
I'm sure you would have been.
Just pulled it out the fire, but I was like, oh, damn. When I saw it played back, I was like, damn, it's his head. So where were we after that? Well, West Ham made it rather awkward for us, didn't they? Arsenal huffed and puffed without a real clear-cut chance as such. West Ham did well, controlled and physical, but with no real threat up top, as we keep saying. David Moyes would have been quite happy with that at the whistle. So we're trailing at the break, but inside a dramatic 5-minute spell in the second half, we were 2-1 up. Let's do the first goal, Paul. Saka timing a run onto the defence or into the defence onto a splitting ball, a 25-yard shot or a pass. The jury's out from Odegaard. He showed great composure, didn't he?
He did.
He kind of hovered round the back.
I think as a Geordie member, I'd have to say I don't think that pass is quite intended, but I can understand why you draw that conclusion. But it doesn't matter, does it? Because it's how you then react to that. And I think the touch from Saka to control the ball, and then the precision of where he positioned the ball past, because Fabianski is a good keeper, as you well know. Yes. You've got to place your shot accurately to get past him, because his reach as his tall goalkeeper, when he gets down, he can cover a lot of the goal line as well. And so it's a hugely composed finish from somebody so young. And I think I've said this before. I think Saka has just come on in leaps and bounds as a player this season. To me, he's up a level, maybe 2 levels from the player he was last season. And I think I kind of got this.
He believes, doesn't he?
He does.
He's got it in his brain now. He was good before because he's been running like that at Hale End all the time. He's been attacking and playing that style of football. But Arteta has kind of jiggled his brain in such a way that it's every week now.
And what do you think, Tom, that maybe the arrival of Gabriel Jesus on the training ground has had a positive effect on Saka as well, in terms of, coaching him, making the moves from showing that, how to get round defenders, bringing that experience to the training ground that he's learned from as well, possibly.
Yeah, it's the bar that was the bar last year. The bar is there, especially with Zinchenko and Jesus. He's seeing Jesus do some phenomenal things, 5 or 6 players, and he just jiggles through them. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
So the level, as you say, has come up. Right, so let's wax lyrical about the next one. 58 minutes, and I've got to tell you, my son, who's coming up to 3 next year, he was behind me. He's never watched a football game in his life, but he was going, yeah, and we were high-fiving and all that sort of stuff. So it's brilliant. So he's definitely a gooner. 58 minutes, 2-1. Odegaard finds Xhaka in space on the edge of the penalty area, and Xhaka plays it to his left to Martinelli. The winger dribbles to the byline and dispatches. It was really good because between his feet, left and right, I thought he was going to stop and then try and thread a pass through, but he didn't. And he hit it low into the right-hand corner of Fabianski's goal. Fabianski's taking some crap for that, but it was a hell of a shot, really low, really hard, and really precise.
Yeah, I agree with you. I wouldn't put that down to goalkeeping error at all. I definitely give the credit to Martinelli for having the confidence to take that shot on. And like you, I thought he was shaping to cross the ball back across the penalty area, but obviously he must have seen the slightest of gaps, because the precision to get that ball into that that smallest of spaces between the goalpost and Fabianski's foot. It was almost like, guessing out, in old school terms, the slide rule and working out what the gap was. Because I was the power shots as well. I mean, a shot hit with power from that distance is always going to cause a goalkeeper problem. But I think as well, it's the way Arteta's coach players have belief in their own ability, that in situations like that, they can improvise, and they feel the shot is on, then go for it, and definitely reap the benefits of that with that decision during the game as well.
Absolutely. Now, if you're confused, if you saw me 1 minute holding up a cup of tea, and then the next minute I'm on this, well, what do you expect? It's coming up to the new year. I've got a Budweiser and a cup of tea on the go. Don't judge me. Right. What you got in there, Paul?
Well, it's my Goodison mug.
He's got the old Goodison mug, hasn't he? Pressure on and pressure off. 69 minutes. Jesus was in sick bay, as we know, so we've got Eddie Nketiah filling in, who hasn't. He's got the natural ability, but the jury's out on whether he can provide the same sort of impetus and threat that Jesus does. But let's get to this goal, because it was a standout, wasn't it, really? It was the goal of the match for me. White dances into space past Ben Rama before firing the pass to Odegaard. That man again. He's on the edge of the penalty area. The Arsenal captain instinctively pokes a ball through to Nketiah. Now, it's what Nketiah does from this moment. Paul, walk us through that, because it was a peach, wasn't it?
It's the turn and the swivel, isn't it? He just sees the defenders, floundering, going in completely the wrong direction. By doing so, he creates space for himself. And then, like Saka's finished for the first goal, it's having the confidence to place the ball out of the reach of Fabianski into the corner of the net. And, I watched so many forwards fluff those sort of chances in that kind of situation. But I think at that stage, the whole team were playing with such confidence that I know Nketiah had a few chances before in the first half, hadn't quite delivered, but he just took it so well. I think some people underestimate that he is a natural goal scorer. You look at his record for England under 21s.
That was absolute proof, wasn't it?
Yeah. 17 games.
I do apologise. Don't know what that is. Keep making that racket, but carry on, Paul. We'll carry on. We're professionals.
I think we are, certainly say. But I think for the England under 21s, he's played 17 games, he's scored 16 goals. Though that's a prodigious return. So when you think pre-match, the amount of pressure he must have been on with Jesus not playing, it would be quite easy for a young player like that to go back into his shell, not to be too adventurous, just try to do the simple things. But he had the confidence, the verb, to anticipate the pass, to get into position for, to lead the defender, send the defender one way, take himself the other way, and curl the ball around Fabianski. I think it was a top class finish. If that means scored in the World Cup, that would have been up there with the top 10 goals in the competition. When you look at the whole build-up, that shimmy from Ben White. That was just.
He played really well yesterday. To be honest, I think that's his best game in an Arsenal shirt.
He really did. For a player who suffered a fair amount of criticism as well, I think last season when he first arrived at Arsenal, I think he was getting kind of castigated for some perceived defence inadequacies in certain games. But I think he's really come on leaps and bounds as well. And his pushing forward like that brings an extra dimension to Arsenal's wide play as well, and gives the opposition defender another problem to deal with. And for a defender, I thought his passing was exquisite. It was just a brilliant through ball.
He's got the feet of a midfielder, hasn't he, Paul?
Yeah.
It's not like a hoof it.
No, absolutely. Whether that's down to Graham Potter originally of Brighton, and Arteta's kind of worked on that as well. But yeah, it was a brilliant passing movement from start to finish, and it was finished off sumptuously by Nketiah. And in terms of doing his confidence the world of good, that would have been a real boost for him. But also, I think from the team's perspective, all the questions beforehand were about who's Jesus isn't playing. That's going to have a real negative impact on the team, which arguably it may do at some stage. But yesterday, 3 different goal scorers. So what you want is other players to step up when your main goal scorer is not available. And I'm sure from Arteta's perspective, he couldn't have asked for things to have gone better. That 3 different goal scorers step up, score 3 quality goals, and it's almost at the end of the game, Jesus, who obviously his influence is missed, but you can only respond by showing we're not a one-man team, because I think lots of things I've heard about Arsenal this season almost kind of indicate that without Jesus, they're not quite the same team. Well, judging by the performance yesterday against West Ham, that's patently not true. It was a brilliant team performance, and people responded to the pressure well. They showed the resilience to come back and go behind. They didn't panic. They kept playing their normal game, and they got the rewards for it.
Well, the thing about that goal as well, where you're saying about the turn, was there was an interesting piece of analysis. And I won't say it too often, but it came from Dion Dublin, Holmes under the hammer. He was on there, and he said, as he was going round, he said the left arm of Nketiah was feeling for the defender, then the right arm. And when he put the right arm down, he could feel where the defender was. I didn't really think about that. Yeah, and when he was over to his right, then he span to his left, which is a classic sort of striker's trick. But he performed it beautifully. I have worried about Eddie Nketiah. I want to see him do well. I want to see him do well because he's a young lad, and he's one of our own. He's come through the academy system. So I really, really want him to succeed. But he just hasn't taken his opportunities when he's been given them. So, Paul, is this his launch pad? Is this the one where he starts from square one and goes through the golden doors with the golden ticket? Is this the one?
Well, I think, basically that's down to him, isn't it? How he responds to that. But I think, I'm sure after the game and during training this week, Arteta will be really working on his confidence. He proved the point yesterday, and really, he can only go on and build on that. And obviously, a couple more goals in the next few games would do him the world of good. But I think what's important from Nketiah's point of view, and you see it from Jesus as well, is if you're not scoring, then you've got to bring something else to the team. So if he does go through a bad spell, which he's going to at some stage, he's got to contribute in other ways to the team by creating chances, by creating opportunities, by creating passes. So the goal scoring obviously is hugely important, but there will be times when you don't score, and that's when, as Jesus has shown perfectly, you contribute in other ways to the team, you tap opposition defense and create opportunities for your teammates. So yeah, it is a launch pad for him. I know Arsenal have got quite a difficult run of fixtures coming up as well, so that'll be an interesting test of his abilities.
Talk about those in a minute.
Yeah. But that's always going to happen during the course of the season, but I think he can be well pleased with his performance. It kind of begs the question, though, doesn't it? Really, if I think Arteta's, unless he's playing mind games with the media, I don't know. It's made it quite clear he's in the market for another striker. Now, I mean, I'm not quite sure how many high quality strikers are going to be available in January. So whether he's using that as a bit of a bit of encouragement for Nketiah in terms of, look, I need you to deliver here, otherwise we're going to bring a new striker in. I don't know. Would you be happy with a new striker coming in, Tom?
I think we're on dodgy ground here, because if he gets a knock, if he is out for 5 or 6 weeks, we're going to be banging trouble. We'll be putting an untested player in there. So I think it makes sense to just go and get a loan.
Yeah,
someone experienced who's maybe not either of those two players, but someone who can keep it all together, keep it ticking over. I'd be tempted to go and get someone on loan. I really would, because, as I say, if anything happens to Eddie, we're up shit creek without a broom head. So yeah, it's a difficult one. But he scored 11 in 11 starts. I mean, it's quite remarkable figures, isn't it?
It is.
He does all the running. I mean, there was times when he was peeling off and he was breaking through and there was no end result. But when it worked, I mean, if that had been Thierry Henry, it'd be splashed everywhere, wouldn't it? He got a fair bit of coverage, but it deserved a bit more, actually, because he's 10 times younger. And, than half of these experienced players in the Premier League. Yeah, he took it like a veteran.
Yeah. And you made the point before as well, Tom. He's a homegrown player, and obviously there's more pressure on homegrown players. I think fans are actually more critical of the homegrown players than they are of the people who brought in for big money fees at times.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure on him, but hopefully we're the crowd were brilliant, so fair play to them. There were some great battles in the middle, mainly involving Declan Rice, funnily enough, because he had a bash with Thomas Partey. He was in there with Odegaard and Saka. He really needs some genuine help, doesn't he? He's like the Lone Ranger in West Ham's team. Got a bit of snot or something on my glasses. Let me get that off, and I'll give you the match stats, Poggers. That's what I'll do. Obviously, it was 3-1. Arsenal 16 shots to West Ham's 8. 5 shots on target for Arsenal. Surprisingly, 4 on target for West Ham. 67% possession for us, 33% for them. 657 passes for us, 331 for them. It shows we had a little bit of class there. We were really making it count. 89% pass accuracy for us and 75% for them. What worried me, Paul, was when I was doing my analysis on the first half, and obviously we weren't making that breakthrough. I was thinking, what are we going to change? How are we going to liven it up if it stays like this after 60 minutes? And then I looked at the bench, and a wave of fear went over me. And I thought, oh, bloody hell. Because I don't know whether you looked at the bench, but
I did.
Cedric, Fabio Vieira, who's coming up, he's doing all right. Sambi Lokonga, untried, untested, really. El Neni, Marquinhos, Turner, Zinchenko, there's your banker, and someone called Kozia Dubry, who I've heard good things about. But I was thinking to myself, blimey, there's not much depth there. You can't really, realistically, change too much, can you?
No, and I think as well, Tom, that kind of underlines the point that's been raised on the pod a few times this season, that lack of depth in the squad is something that might have to be addressed in the January window, certainly in terms of being experienced. And I know if you look at the injury list, you've got Smith Rowe's quite close to being fit again. So he's a good option.
Massive one for us.
Yeah, it will be. Yeah, it'd be good to have him back as well. But beyond that, there's not a huge amount of resources there in the squad to call upon. So I think what you're saying before about possibly being an experienced striker on loan, I think as well, you're probably looking maybe some more cover in defence and maybe another person comes in midfield, because I think this season more than any, players with the World Cup, etc., are going to be more prone to injuries as the season progresses, and you need to get to the end of January confident that you've got the ability within the squad to cope with those kind of setbacks.
Absolutely. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, because I'm sure everyone's got their own ideas of what we need. For me, it is someone to cover Partey and Xhaka, and someone to take the heat off Saka or Martinelli, someone who can play left and right maybe, but definitely a loner until the end of the season up top. So, player of the match. We can't say man of the match anymore. It's a bit sexist. Player of the match, Paul. Who was yours? I picked mine at half time, and it just got better and better.
I know yours are going to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, in the interest
of predictable.
in the interest of continuing having a debate here, I'd be glad to give it to Saka. I think his goal was crucial in just igniting the momentum that got Arsenal to 3 points. I think his contribution during the game was outstanding, and I think the ability, the verve he brings to the team, and that little touch of showmanship he brings to the side as well. So it's a close call. I think most rational people will give us an Odegaard. I thought I know you try to give him credit for that pass to Saka's first goal, but I thought Saka played really well.
Got a magic wand, that guy, hasn't he? I was just trying to look for the. I had a printout of what they said. Oh, here it is. It's a printout of the ratings for the players. Ramsdale 4.0, White 4.1, Saliba 4.0, Gabriel 4.0, Kieran Tierney 3.8. I thought it was a little bit better than that. 4.5 for Odegaard, 4.1 for Thomas Partey, 4.2 for Xhaka, and 4.5 for Saka, 4.1 for Nketiah, and 4.5 for Martinelli. Yeah, my man of the match. I just love the boy. Any excuse to talk about him, really. Martin Odegaard. The passing, the vision, the touches, the tracking back. He put in a real captain shift. But for me, that's his best performance in an Arsenal shirt. How much do you enjoy watching this guy, this £30 million Real Madrid reject? It's stunning, isn't it, Paul, that he's just making a nonsense of that transfer, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he's kind of finally lived up to the ability of, he was being held as this teenage wonder kid, wasn't he, when he made the move from Norway to Real Madrid? And you can't underestimate the amount of pressure that puts on your shoulders when you've got this expectation that you're going to be the next like Galactico at the Bernabeu. So I think he's learned from that experience. Yeah, I mean, the more to see of Odegaard, I'm impressed by his anticipation. I'm impressed by his understanding of where the ball is going to go. I'm impressed by his kind of positional awareness. He seems to know where players are. Impressed by the precision of his passing. I also like his tackling as well. He also spots
he's not
danger.
Scared, is he?
No, he's not scared. I mean, it's interesting. I thought it was interesting.
He's no good at it, but he gets it.
Well, I thought it was quite good yesterday comparing him with Declan Rice, because they kind of been, the two of the best midfielders arguably in the Premier League at the moment. I kind of thought, he came out superior on that comparison last night because I thought his drive, his passing contributed, as a really important factor in Arsenal's success and the victory.
I've just had a text in. Let me have a look. It's I think it's the guys, Lauren and Connor. So Lauren's coming back I think it's on the 28th. So that'll be good to see her again. And Connor's going to join us in January. And Jay's at some sort of soiree. And Nick's, I don't know what Nick's doing. He's doing something else, something more interesting than talking to us, obviously.
Well, these are the circles Jay moves in these days, aren't they?
Yeah, talking about Martin Odegaard, I put a post out on Facebook on the 27th of December 2021, and I put he's worth every penny. A little bit of Ozil, a little bit of Dennis, give it a stir, and you get Odegaard. Now, his moment of the match for me, Paul, I don't know whether you call it, Odegaard was in superb form all night, as I said, but there was a back heel nutmeg between Gerard Bowen Paqueta that proves just how good he is. He's right tight to the line. I keep saying this.
It's by the touchline, wasn't it?
And he's got zero space, and he does this a lot. You've got two players on him, and you think he's going to lose the ball easily. And he did this little beautiful back heel, and they were like, and it reminded me of the Dabby Das Bergkamp episode when he just left him for dead. And it was so cute. It was so savvy, and I was so impressed. What did you make of things like that? I mean, but he was doing that all night long. He really did boss it. And I know Thomas Partey did his bit, but I kind of Odegaard with all that shiny, polished performance overshadows him, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think that little flick, that little sequence was kind of actually got on the cake for the performance, because it was a good team captain's performance, as you rightly outlined there, Tom, all the way through the match. I think he deserved that opportunity to show, hey, tell you what, we're 3-1 up, there's not long to go. Let me just show what I can do here, given half the chance now. And things like that really give the crowd a boost as well, don't they? You come away from the game thinking,
that's what you pay your money for, isn't it?
Yeah,
these little images in
exactly.
Your mind.
And you can guarantee, that when the schools reopen, be one or two kids trying to try that move on the playground, trying to do an Odegaard and stuff like that. So it's really good.
So many good performances.
It's about entertainment.
Yeah, of course it is. I mean, when I used to go to Highbury and watch the likes of Henry and Vieira and Pires and Lundberg, I mean, the list is endless, isn't it? Even kind of the second string, the Wiltords and people like that, you got genuinely excited. And people like Martinelli, I mean, he really gets me off my seat. Every time he's looking at the goal. He's just got nothing else in his mind. It's just going to go forward. He's not going to go backwards. He's not going to go sideways unless he can help it. And Saka. So you've got an immense front three when Jesus is there. But now Eddie Nketiah could probably profit. I don't know what's the matter with my teeth tonight. Could probably profit from that sort of setup. It's amazing to watch. And as you say, some of the entertainment has been so taken away from the game with VAR and this slow, ponderous analysis and everything else, that it's just nice to have moments where you jump out of your chair or your sofa or whatever and just appreciate the purity of the game again. And Odegaard is one of those. Right, Paul, before we wrap it up, we're 7 points clear. It's a collective we, because we know Paul is a toffee, but he's an adopted Arsenal guy, and he's our friend. So we just call him one of ours. Okay. So if you don't like it, go somewhere else. Right. 7 points clear. Brighton away on the 31st. Let's have a look at that one. That is normally a bit of a tricky one for the Arsenal. It's not a nice place to go. No one enjoys going there because they're quite a savvy team. That Brighton.
Yeah, I think once again it's going quite a difficult game. I think Brighton had a really good win against Southampton yesterday, 4-1. I know they played really well when they drew 3-3 against Liverpool at Anfield, and they got a goal scoring.
Here we go. I've got to put another 10p in the meter. Something's going on.
They got a goal scoring threat throughout the team. Now, I'm always using Petrotross, so I think he's a really, really good player.
He's a great player.
You might say, I don't know if McAllister's going to be back from the World Cup for that game or not. Obviously, from an Arsenal perspective, you prefer him not to arrive back from the World Cup. Yes, it's going to be a difficult game. There's definitely, as I said, there's definitely goals in the Brighton team. I think defensively, they're not the strongest. I think that really is kind of going to be where the game is won or lost from Arsenal's perspective, because I think Arsenal will have chances, and then you just need to maintain the consistency of finishing that they showed in the game against West Ham. But you kind of hope that Danny Welbeck's not fit to play, because there's the curse of the ex-player coming back to score against you as well. But yeah,
he couldn't normally for Arsenal. He couldn't hit a cow's arse with a banjo. But he's going to get 2 or 3.
It's the curse of the ex-player, isn't it? You just know they're going to score. They're going to score when they give the opportunity to play against their own side like that. So it will be a difficult game. But I think you have to make the decision that, in terms of the league position, I think Arsenal's about 17 points ahead right in the table at the moment, something like that. So really, they're the ones going in full of confidence. And I can see, I don't think it's going to be a routine victory for Arsenal, but I can definitely see them certainly win maybe 2-1 or 2-0. I think they've just got too much for Brighton at this stage, and I think that the momentum is clearly with Arsenal at the moment.
Now, Paul, you're Mikel Arteta. You're looking towards January. Trossard, he's got to be worth a punt, hasn't he? He's Premier League ready. He's proven he can score a goal. He's a tidy player. You go for him?
Well, I think I mentioned this probably a few weeks ago that if you're looking for somebody with Premier
League...
I
wasn't listening.
Well, no one ever does from you, sir. But
joking.
Yeah, it's just like being at home. But yeah, it's
be like in the lounge with the wife.
It's he's a really good player. You know, he's a goal scorer threat, but he's more than just a goal scorer as well. And I mean, I'm sure Brighton would be reluctant to sell him, but you know. It'd
be a few quid as well, wouldn't he? They do,
yeah. I think at this stage of the season, given the position that Arsenal are in, I know we touched on before about this previous year of money being squandered on players who didn't quite deliver for big money fees and long contract. But I think the Arsenal now is different from Arsenal 4 or 5 years ago in terms of recruitment. I think Eddie's done a really good job in identifying the players who would fit into Arteta's preferred system of playing. So I think Trossard is the type of person who would fit into that kind of system as well. So, at some stage, it might be a case saying, look, if we invest in this guy now, then we're going to reap the dividends towards the end of the season. So he's definitely one that should be under consideration in my view.
I'll tell you what, when people talk about Edu, if you haven't seen All or Nothing, with that whole Aubameyang saga. To be honest, I've seen a couple of All or Nothings with different teams, but when you watch this, it's unmissable. There's a bit of drama there, but Edu's right there, and he's really doing his bit. And it kind of opened up the whole thing of the club, the ethos of the new ethos of the club, the way they operate and what they're looking for in players. And I was deadly impressed with Edu. I wasn't so sure before because I've been tainted by Raul.
Yes.
75 million for a 35 million player. Here's my nice new yacht. That kind of shenanigans going on. I think getting back to the point, Trossard, brilliant player, and he's Premier League ready. And if we've got the money, I don't know what it's going to cost. But Brighton always milk it, don't they? So it's probably 40 million of anyone's money. So the next one up after that is Newcastle, January the 3rd. Eddie Howe, he needs his wrist slapped, doesn't he? He's doing a good old job there, isn't he?
He's actually done far best than I anticipated, Tom. He really has. And I was looking at the Newcastle lineup for the game against Leicester yesterday, and I'm thinking, well, it's not screaming standout top star quality, but they played really well as a team. They're well organised. They give very few chances to the opposition. They take the chances well. And Almiron, who was getting mocked by Jack Grealish towards the end of last season, suddenly is on this flurry of goal scoring. He seems absolutely unstoppable.
He's a good player.
He seems unstoppable at the moment. And they've got real strength in depth now. They've got players coming back from injury. So I think that is going to be a really fascinating game to watch because almost unnoticed, Newcastle have crept up to second, but they've only lost once all season. I mean, and they've done a lot. I mean, they were actually robbed at Liverpool, like most teams are sometimes. But it really was. They've really done far better than I think most people anticipate. And it's a credit to Howe's skills as a coach because I think there was always a question mark over Eddie Howe after Bournemouth got relegated that maybe he peaked with Bournemouth and he wasn't going to be able to repeat that success elsewhere. And he clearly wasn't. He wasn't Newcastle's first choice as coach. I think he wanted Emery. Emery is the coach, didn't he? Initially, they made the approach for him, but it's kind of worked out better for him. So I think that's going to be a really, from a neutral perspective, seeing how that game develops is going to be fascinating to watch. It really is. And once again, it's another test of Arsenal's abilities. But once again, home advantage, top of the league, good run of form. You have to take these opportunities.
As you say, Almiron and Joel Linton as well. I mean, I don't know what's happened to that guy because he was bang average at one point, wasn't he? He wasn't putting in a performance. Eddie Howe's dragged it out of him. It's these new young managers with their new approaches. Perhaps that's the way the game's going.
Yeah, I mean, you can certainly see similarities between Eddie Howes' approach and Mikel Arteta's approach. Saying the way they've transformed the way the team plays with verve and confidence, and they're prepared to gamble on youth as well, and to work with players to make them better players. Which I think Joe Linton and Almond are two examples of players who last season probably most Premier League teams wouldn't have looked at, but suddenly now you think, they're not bad.
The thing about Newcastle as well was when this other group came in and took over and all that, obviously they had bottomless pit of money, and everyone thought, oh, here we go. They're just going to chuck money at this cash cow and kind of buy every really, really good player. But they've been very measured, very controlled. They've bought some bargains along the way as well, haven't they? With experience, Trippier. They've got him in. He's played a blinder for them. I don't particularly like him myself, but they've been solid, and he's mixed them in with what he had already. And he shows no signs of trying to run out and buy Lionel Messi or anything like that. There's a different vibe going now, and it's more about what's happening at the club and less about just buying willy-nilly, because it doesn't work, does it? We've all seen it. You've squandered God knows how much, and we've squandered the same.
Tell me about it. And I think, as we can discuss on this podcast, it's about the team ethos, isn't it? You can have as many. No, I think Aubameyang is the classic example. Like, you can have as many star players in the team as you want, but if they don't buy into the team ethos, if they don't buy into the manager's philosophy, then what's the point of having them what's the point of having them in the team? So, yeah, I think Howes has been spot on. I think he bought Dan Burns from Brighton last January, who I didn't particularly was that good a player, but he's brought a real solidity to that Newcastle defence as well that they didn't have before. So, yeah, I just think Eddie Howe, maybe Mikel Arteta is the same, that they're far more comfortable dealing with players they feel they can improve than bringing in big star players who they worry are going to, in the end, turn up being negative influence on the club rather than positive one.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Aubameyang, going back to all or nothing as well, because he sort of stayed away, should have come back, and then Mikel ripped him a new one. And then he was kind of taking the piss in his car outside, his nice new flash car, sort of laughing.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to crawl through the screen and punch him. Obviously not the right thing to do as a supporter, but he really annoyed me. So yeah, it's big Charlie Potatoes. FA Cup against Oxford, that'll be a nice little money spinner for Oxford, and hopefully we won't catch cold on that. Then we've got Spurs on the 15th before we get to Man City. For me, Paul, out of those games coming up, it's obviously the City one that we haven't mentioned. That's at home at the Emirates, and Newcastle. I think they are going to give us some real indication we're in a right fight with those two clubs. And if we come out of there, I mean, last season, we played City off the park. We really did. Before Gabriel got sent off for some nonsense. But yeah, it'd be interesting. What's your point of view on those two games? Because I think they are going to be crucial.
I think, from an Arsenal perspective, I think you'd be quite happy with 4 points from 6 from those. I mean, the City game, I mean, I kind of remember going back to a situation, I think towards the end of the 90s, when Newcastle were ahead of the table and they're playing Man United, and Keane kind of went for bust to try and beat United. In the end, a draw would have suited Newcastle better, but they lost the game 1-0 by taking the game to United. And I think the Arsenal City game is going to be intriguing to watch, because it might well be that if you've still got the 7-point gap there, it's more important not to lose than win, because you're keeping the 7-point gap there, if you see what I mean. So I think, I'd expect Arsenal to beat Newcastle. I think a draw at home against City at that stage of the season, if the 7-point gap is still there, is actually quite a good result. Obviously, it would be perfect, but at some stage this season, there's going to be a bit of a heft. There's going to be an underpar performance against somebody. But yeah, it's just, I think, I was talking about this with my son last night about the importance of the West Ham game yesterday, because it's not necessarily how you do against your rival teams in the Big Six that decides the title. It's how you do against the teams outside the Big Six. It's dropping points against those teams that can sometimes cost you the title, rather than dropping points against your rivals. So, for example, City lost at home 2-1 to Brentford. Well, that's the kind of game you want to avoid, dropping points at home against Brentford. So, although these games are massively important in terms of psychological balance thing, to me, it's equally as important to keep you focused for the games against so-called lesser teams in the Premier League, to make sure that when you play them, you take the 3 points.
Yeah, I don't want to make too much of this 7-point lead, because that's not enough. I mean, if it was 17 points, I'd be a bit more excited. But 7 points, that could just disappear in the blink of an eye. So it's all about consistency.
Well, 7 points, 2 games to go is not a bad position to be in, you know, Tom.
That's all right. Yeah, I don't mind that one. So we've got the transfer window coming up Sunday, January the 1st, 2023, and it closes at 11 p.m. on Tuesday, January the 31st. I think there's going to be a lot of action in the Premier League, isn't it? I expect us to get at least 2 players. From your point of view, with your situation with Everton, you must be hoping they're going to draft some sort of striker in immediately, mustn't you?
Yeah, I think both clubs from a different perspective. In a market where there's very scarce commodities available at the moment at the right price, at the right deal. So I think from Everton's perspective, yes, undoubtedly, you know, a striker is going to be required. Sadly, because of the millions have been squandered over the years, Everton are not in a position to go on and bring in a big money signing, which might not be a bad thing. So I think you're possibly looking at a loan signing, or, you know, I always have this thing that sometimes there might just be somebody top level of the Championship. You might just like what West Ham did with Jared Bowen 2 seasons ago, like Brentford did with Even Tony. You know, there are people out there if you've got the right recruitment team to bring in. So yeah, we definitely strengthen. I think, as we just on before, Tom, you know, to maintain the title challenge, particularly if that, you know, you're still in Europe, you're still in the FA Cup, you need to have strength and depth to be able to cope with.
We're normally out of everything by December. I mean, this is a breath of fresh air.
Enjoy it while it lasts, you know.
We're all normally having to draft them out the back rooms to try and fill the team, because we've got so many injured. That's how it normally shapes for us. Yeah, it's going to be an exciting time. It's going to be one of those ones where, as an Arsenal supporter, you're just thinking, surely they've learnt from last season. Surely they're going to make a splash, get 2 or 3 players, and just top it up. Because as we said earlier on, that bench is woefully thin. It's like a bit of cling film. It's terrible. And the further we go into all these different areas, FA Cup, Europa, still trying to keep hold of the Premier League #1 position, we're going to be found out quite quickly, I would imagine. But I don't think Edu is going to make that mistake this time with Arteta. I think they've already identified this Mudryk. He keeps getting sort of named, doesn't he, and linked with the club. Have you seen him, Paul? Have you seen anything on YouTube?
I'd be struggling to give you an insight into him, really, Tommy. He's not someone hugely familiar.
Thank God for that. It's normally Jay that does this to me. I've just to let the podcast family know, I have actually seen quite a lot of footage, because he keeps getting mentioned. You get, what's special about this guy? So he can actually work on the flanks or as a striker as well. So he's filling 2 roles there. I think Arteta's got that in his mind, and I really do think we're going to have a punt for him. There's been other names mentioned, but they're not as solid. And but we know we need a defensive midfielder and a winger, bare minimum, to cover Saka if anything happens to him, or Martinelli. We're in banging trouble. Right, so we will hook up again, sir, after the next game, if not before. We're like that. We'll have Jay back, surely. We'll have Lauren back. We'll have Connor back on the audio podcast. Thank you very much for all your subscriptions. The audio podcast has had 11,000, nearly 12,000 downloads. So thank you very much for that, for supporting us. You can subscribe to the YouTube version, which you're watching currently, or you can like and follow the audio version. Every single one counts. And I can't say it enough, but thank you so much. It's been a brilliant season for us so far, personally. Paul, you look after yourself, sir, and I will see you shortly. Get yourself an extra big box of tissues, the way Everton are playing, and one of those sponge bricks that when you're watching from home, you can throw it at the TV without doing any damage.
That's true, Tom, but I'm sure you'll be supporting us at the weekend, because we're playing away at Man City.
Absolutely. I'm suddenly a Toffees fan. Don't you know? You look after yourself, mate.
Cheers. Thanks, Sal. And thanks for everyone on the show. Always do our conversation. Thank you so
Always a
much.
pleasure. Always a pleasure. The two musketeers.
Who needs three?
Yeah. Well, they're all off partying somewhere, aren't they?
I'm jealous. I'm jealous.
Take care.